Focus now on World AIDS Day. The country's latest HIV and AIDS statistics have revealed that young women are most vulnerable to HIV. Deputy President David Mabuza delivered the keynote address at a ceremony in Soweto earlier today, saying a lot of progress has been made in the fight against HIV and AIDS. Our reporter Khayelihle Khumalo is following the story. Let's cross to him for the latest. Hello, Khaya. So how is South Africa doing in dealing with HIV and AIDS?
Well, obviously, Sally, it's still a massive problem in South Africa. It still remains one of, the high-ranking public health threats in South Africa, given the fact that we're still an epicenter with a staggering 7.7 million South Africans living with this particular virus. So the Deputy President really was also highlighting some of the strides that the country has been able to make, but also just scaling up its own programs. For example, when you go back to 2018 to March 2020, over 18 million South Africans were able to go and test. But also the government is calling for a very integrated approach. As much as we are fighting COVID-19, now they are looking at also including more HIV and AIDS program in terms of making sure that when they screen people and test them, they also do make sure that they do get tested for HIV and AIDS. But also in terms of the brackets, that continues to be a concern for the government. It's the young women, Sally. That's where the concern is. And of course, this has been attributed to the social dynamics in South Africa, where the young women fall prey to the older men who do offer all kinds of things to them. But also, let's take a listen to how the Deputy President responded.
According to the statistics at our disposal, you can see that young girls are mostly affected. These are the people that are mostly affected by HIV and AIDS. The level of infection keeps on rising on these young people. There are many factors. There are many factors that are behind this increase. Let alone the new epidemic, the gender-based violence, which is part of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Khaya, tell us a little bit more, about the plans and the next steps. We know that South Africa runs the world's biggest treatment plan for HIV/AIDS. So what is government focusing on now to make more strides against HIV/AIDS?
So what has been a challenge in 2020, undoubtedly the impact of COVID-19. We've seen a lot of resources diverted to fighting this new pandemic. And in fact, we spoke also to the Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Patla, who really made an admission that the state now is focusing more on HIV and AIDS. So they do have a program that they've launched. That is the program where you must know your status. So if you may just bear with me, it's rather very terrible now. The wind is blowing.
Oh dear,
but
Khaya.
what you know so far is the government is pumping a lot of resources in terms of making sure that they do address, so they do address this particular challenge. And we know that when it comes to South Africa, I mean, a lot of campaigns have been made. You go back to the very dark era in the early 2000s. But Sally, let's take a listen to the Deputy President.
We have listened to your input and are committed to supporting you going forward. As partners in the response to HIV and TB, we must respond to the health needs of our adolescent girls and young women. In the same vein, We must intensify the She Conquers campaign for adolescent girls and young women. With this campaign, we seek to decrease new infections in girls and young women. We seek to decrease teenage pregnancies. We want to keep our young girls at school. We want to decrease incidences of gender-based violence and increase economic opportunities for young people, especially adolescent girls and young women.
The Deputy President making such an important point there, Khaya, that we have to tackle gender-based violence if we're going to tackle the rising number of HIV/AIDS amongst young people, particularly young women and girls. Khaya, really important story, and thank you very much for bringing that to us. I am delighted to see you've retrieved the umbrella and that you and your crew are in one piece. I'm wondering if we're going to move this into a weather story. That storm looks quite hectic. Is everything okay your side?
Well, Sally, I can tell you this much. It's pouring here. And luckily, well, oopsie, it looks like the elements, though, tend to disagree. But we're just holding firm to the umbrella. I mean, it's been a very terrible situation because where we are, we're right here by Parktown, and we had to move from Soweto because also torrential amount of rain were pouring that side. So, but luckily, you know, everything is flowing here. Luckily, the traffic has not been affected here on Jan Smuts.
Well, please try not to get blown away, and perhaps you should go inside for safety. Thank you very much for bringing that story to us, Khayelihle Khumalo, despite the weather fighting with you.